heard from some of you that you enjoy listening to every experience that I have, and this experience was extremely brief. It's about 1:50 p.m. on Saturday, and I decided to nap for a bit. Every time I close my eyes and I lay my head down, I don't know exactly what's going to happen, whether it's going to be a lucid dream, or I'm going to go on another beyond body or astral projection experience, or something else. My abilities continue to amaze me. Things that I have no idea that I was able to do. This is really a surprise to me. I never considered myself, again, astral projection, for those of you who have listened to previous episodes, astral projection was simply something that I could do when I was younger. It was a hobby. It was something that I was just like, okay, I could do this. I could go out there and then I could come back, and it was always fascinating. I did not know that I had other things that I could do, but as I get older, I continue to discover those things. This afternoon, I was simply lying down again, just for a nap, but I'm always open to experiences, which I always encourage you to be. I always encourage you to be open to different experiences that you could have. Now, at first, I was just kind of laying in silence. I didn't have music on. I didn't have any kind of meditative kind of sounds on. I was just in silence. And my mind was completely clear. And this was one thing I've spoken about, having that foundation of meditation, having the foundation of being able to clear your thoughts, to be able to relax yourself. These things are so very important. I continue to be reminded of this each time I have an experience, especially when I have a wonderful one, because when I had this experience, my mind, my thoughts were completely clear. I was open to the experience, whatever that experience might be. I was open to it. And this is what you need to be. You need to be open to the experience. So I was lying there and I was open to the experience. Now, at one point, I had a sense that there was a being there. This is where things begin to get murky with me. I want to make sure that I clarify, though, that at this point I hadn't left my body. There was no beyond body experience. This was just a sense that there was another being present. Now, I told you, and I had a really quick episode, this will be a kind of a similar episode, about another being that I met that was a young Japanese girl who was just having a conversation with me. I don't remember all of the conversation, but I remember I asked her how she had passed away, and she had said that Godzilla had threw her off a mountain. Of course, she was doing that in jest. She was joking around, and that's perfectly fine. I'm not sure how she passed, and at this point, I don't believe that it was relevant that I know exactly what happened to her and how she died. The most important thing was I had such a pleasant connection with that being. I had such a pleasant connection with her. This being, this afternoon, I believe her name was Mito. And I'm not sure. I don't think she was the person that I connected with before. But when I reached out, let me go back to when I was reaching out and I had a sense that there was a being there. It was almost as if I reached out, I was under my blankets, and I reached out my hand. And I totally, in my own physical body, I wasn't dreaming this. I truly felt as if I was reaching my hand out when I was in my bed, and I extended, and then I felt energy. Like normally, I tell you that I feel my connection with another hand when I grasp it. So I grasp another hand, and that is when I know that I am connecting with a spirit being. This time, I felt a spark, almost like electricity or energy, and I grasped that connection, that energy, that force, and I held it as if I were holding a hand, but it wasn't a hand, it was energy, pure energy. And as soon as that happened, I felt literally as if I was on some kind of network, like I was listening to different voices. There was a voice I heard early on, and I haven't talked about this much. I really haven't talked about it at all. This was early on in my astral projection experiences when I was actually in my 30s. I had shut my eyes, and this was something very similar that happened. I heard this voice. Now, this voice, I've been to the Philippines before. I still cannot explain this, but this voice had a very definite Filipino accent. I know I've been to the Philippines like 2 or 3 times, and I know this accent is very, very distinct. And I remember this voice had said, as we were sitting there, and I don't remember much about the conversation, but I do remember the voice saying that we have a very unique experience, that we have the potential for a very unique experience in the sense of future experiences that I was going to have. I didn't realize at that point, at that moment, that he may have been speaking really truly about this, about these experiences. But the voice that I heard today, this afternoon, that was one of the voices. But there were other voices that I heard. I heard my own voice speaking, having a conversation, and I heard Mito's voice too. The name was Mito. Now, I don't remember all of the conversation. I seem to remember something about having a conversation about how violent things are, I think, in this world. Those of you obviously that pay attention to the news, you know that there's a lot of violence and things that happen in our 3D world with wars, there's bloodshed, there's all these things. I almost have a sense that we were all talking about that. But it was funny because sometimes I would hear my voice, but it was almost like I was listening and I could hear my voice at the same time. It wasn't like I was, if you participate in a conversation, you're talking, you're thinking of responses, you're interacting. This time, I felt like I was listening to my voice, but at times it was like I was listening as someone who was just listening. It wasn't like I was participating, but at the same time I was, which was very, very strange. I could also hear Mito's voice, and I could hear that Filipino accent. And I want to tell you that these voices sounded like, I can really compare this. For those of you who have listened perhaps to the radio and it's very distant, that sound of a radio that's a very distant sound. The voices, you could hear voices almost like a DJ or someone in talk radios, they're speaking and you could hear the voices, but they're very kind of distant. It was as if the volume was turned down. You could hear the voices, you could make out what they were saying, but they were coming from the radio, and that's really what it felt like. This conversation went on for a while, but as I say, I don't remember much about it. And this is again something I talk about with being able to carry on and have conversations, ask questions of your guides, do all these things. But the question is how much are you going to bring back? And I have to tell you that I apologize. I'm not bringing back much. I am bringing back that I think we were talking about the violence in the world, but what is amazing to me and what I'm bringing back for myself is that, and this is so hard for me to admit. I've never thought of myself like this. I'm just being so purely honest and raw with you at this very moment that I never thought of myself as having some kind of extra sense. I I always gave that, or I always thought of that with other people. I've gone to a fair before where I met people that were psychic, and I always thought that was just such an amazing thing. But that's not something that I was. I wasn't that. That's not me. I could go to someone and consult with someone who had that extra sense, but I didn't have it. Now I'm beginning to think, and I have to admit that because of some of the experiences I've had, that I do have some sort of extra sensory perception. Although at this moment, at this time, in this video, I'm not going to sit and try and define it because I don't know what it is. I don't know what that extra sense means. I mean, I can't call on it when I'm in the world and I'm walking around and I'm at my work, or if I'm dealing with people. I can't call on it then. I can only call on it when I go into this other consciousness. Then I can. So many things are possible, and it truly makes me believe that all of you could do the same thing. That it's not just about astral projection. That you can access so many different things. Anyway, I hope I gave you some things to think about, and I will revisit this. Anytime I have a situation or something like this comes up, I will put it out there for you, and I don't know. You be the judge of it, and tell me what you think. Anyway, thank you so much for taking a moment of time to listen to this. Thank you so much for coming on another journey with me. And until next time, take care.